I just got to make sure it's live on this other page. I think it automatically does. All right, cool. So hello and happy Thursday. Welcome to this week's Lunch and Learn. Can't believe it's Thursday, right?
I know, Thursday. I was like, oh, Thursday. Wow.
And so all of this month, we are talking about how to, kind of financially survive a divorce. And that's kind of our theme of the month. It's not the most spirited, but, it has to be talked about because if we're not talking about it, we're not learning about these things, which we have to be informed. And part of the reason Purse Strings is here is always to provide this financial education for women. But then you need a professional to go and put things in transaction or transition. So we have our top tier financial professionals willing, ready, and able to serve you. And we call those our Purse Strings approved professionals. And I always get this wrong. Shell Sawyer is one of them. It's opposite, so I can't get it right. So she's one of them. So we're so happy to have you on today to bring your expertise and kind of share. Today we're going to be going over some fears that kind of go through divorce and kind of overcoming those fears. But before we dive into all of that, would you give us a little introduction about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so thank you for having me, Maggie. I'm so happy to be here, and definitely being one of the Purse Strings approved professionals is wonderful. So I'm Shell Sawyer. I have my own business. It's called Finding Strength with Shell. And basically what I do is help divorcing clients make good decisions for their future. So making sure that they're making the right settlement options, they understand what the implications are to that, and also helping them navigate the divorce, right? Their divorce. So I am a certified divorce financial analyst, a CDFA. I'm also a mediator and a certified divorce coach. So that my financial expertise, the expertise in divorce-specific finances is what sets me apart from different divorce professionals.
Yeah, those are a lot of divorce expertise. So you really know what's going on in there, which is great. You need to. Somebody needs to.
Yeah, you need to, right? I went through my own divorce, and I wish I had somebody like me helping me through that, just helping me make the right decisions, right?
And I always love when someone, becomes that person that they needed. It's very inspiring to others. But let's fight these fears and jump right in.
Okay.
So divorce, it's an unknown.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason why you wouldn't have a fear. I understand that.
Right.
So
and
I
most
think
people have only, they don't go through it more than once, right? So you don't know until you're there, and you try not to think about it until the time comes, right?
right. I mean, you don't want to plan for these things.
Yeah.
But I think there were like a big three fears that we kind of wanted to talk about today. So will you share kind of the first one with us?
Yeah. So the first one that I see very often, this is probably like the most, is just people not being, they fear they're not going to be okay after their divorce, right? Financially okay, and able to like survive, right? So they're scared about their finances.
Yeah, and that's understandable, for sure. And so how do we overcome this fear?
Yeah, so staying focused on what your life is going to look like after the divorce is really very important, right? That post-divorce lifestyle. So knowing where you're going to be. One of the things I work on with my clients, whether I'm doing mediation or I'm doing some financial work, helping them come up with a good settlement option for them, and make sure we do a cash flow statement. So looking at what is your income, what are your expenses after everything is all said and done, right? Are you going to be owning your home? Are you going to be renting a home? And what those expenses look like along those lines. So keeping focused on where you are and where you're going to be is really important, right? And having that along those lines with knowing what those financials are that you are agreeing to in your settlement, right? Because things can look very different in your post-divorce lifestyle if you choose, say, between $500,000 in cash versus $500,000 in equity versus $500,000 in a retirement plan. All those mean something different to you in your future, right?
Yeah.
Having $500,000 in equity in your home can't feed you, right? Cash can. So you want to make sure you're not giving away some of those like valuable assets that can protect you in your future, right?
Definitely. I mean, hitting on that first point, you really got to keep your eye on the kind of on the prize and where you want to be next, but also, knowing ideally what that's going to look like or realistically. But then, the one thing I've learned from all our professionals is money is not dollar for dollar. The dollar for your house is not the same for cash, is not the same for something else. So even though you think 500,000 is 500,000, it's not, which is amazing. But taxes and the way money works, not dollar for dollar.
Maggie, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, taxes can be a big issue, right, in divorce.
Definitely. Well, I could just see sometimes it's like, well, that equals the same number on the balance sheet, but it's not always like that, which I know is not paper, right? Again, you have to think futuristically about that money as well.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, because if you take $500,000 of an asset and you need to pay taxes on that, but your spouse gets an asset that they don't.
Sorry, I'm a little frozen.
Oh, yeah, you are. Yeah. Am I frozen? I don't think so. Yeah, you froze. I can hear you, though. I think, maybe. Yeah, I can hear you.
Are you there? Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh. Okay. I think we're back. All right.
Okay.
All right. So let's then move on to like the second fear that women talk to you a lot about. What's that one?
So that's not getting what they deserve, right? They're worried about that, something's going to happen where they're not truly going to get what they deserve, right? So in a lot of states, and not all, right? Every state's different, and they have different laws and regulations and everything, but you're trying to get close to 50-50 in a fair and equitable state, even community property. You're trying to get close to 50-50, but and what I want to say is like, you really want to ask the questions like, what do you own? What is what of what you own? What is that worth? And then also, what do you owe? Right. So those questions are really good to ask when you're looking at what do you deserve, right? So coming up with even just those things that you own and you owe, and being really financially prepared for these discussions going forward, right? To be able to get what they deserve. And I would say most people think that their division of property is going to be very simple. Like, oh, I hear that all the time, right? We don't have much. We just have a car and we have a house. But it can get very complex, right? When you start trying to divide assets, because what I tell my clients all the time is like, you're in the process of like uncoupling, right? So you really have to negotiate these things. And if you're unwilling, you're not willing to give something up in order to get something else, it can be very cumbersome, and it becomes complex very easy. And that's what's fearful, right? Being able to protect yourself and navigate those waters.
So would you then recommend that the best thing for this is to really assess, what like you said, what you have and what you owe?
Yes. I mean, that's the first step. I think before you even decide to go get an attorney, sitting down with a financial professional and looking at what you owe, what you own, and then what would be a good settlement option for you, right? Would be ideal. So me as a CDFA, I do that, like that's a regular thing I do with my clients, is sitting down and just helping them organize and prepare ahead of time. One thing, and you probably know this, Maggie, and people who are listening, is like when you're prepared, it really takes a lot of the fear away from you, right? And when
I was going to say, some of these conversations are great, even if you're not getting divorced. If you've never had these conversations, this is a great time to have them. Like this will make you feel very calm or just factual.
Yeah. And I would say, I'm so glad you brought that up, because like in your marriage, just being like informed can go a long
Hmm.
way, right? A
Long way.
great thing to do with your spouse on a regular basis is just having conversations about your finances, so you know,
Yep.
right? Doesn't mean you have to do them, you don't have to pay the bills.
Right.
You're informed and you're aware of, I don't know how many times I sit down with my couples and they're shocked with really like how much they actually do spend, right? And
Yep.
you don't want it to be at that point when you're getting divorced to really understand what your expenses are, right?
No.
You don't
No.
want it to be that time. Being in the know ahead of time will set you up for success, even if
Yep.
you never head down this path.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, kind of figure out what you have, so you don't, so you kind of feel like you understand what you almost deserve.
Yeah, and making sure there's like, a lot of people fear like those hidden assets.
Hmm.
Um, talking to a financial professional and finding out like, is there something that I need to be concerned with?
Right.
Is there a business that I need to get valued? Right? Like, what is
Right.
that, the value of the business? I would say never let anybody dictate to you what you think the value of something is. Right? Find out for yourself. Um,
Right.
be your own advocate and have a financial professional help you do that.
And sometimes when they look over the numbers, they can help you find those, you didn't even think something is wrong, and they'll help you find something if it is wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
and
they might
so,
you think of things that you didn't even think of,
right.
right? It could be something simple as like, frequent flyer miles, right? Don't let Everybody wants to go on vacation. Don't let those slide by, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I was just talking to someone else where the whole thing was kind of hung up on miles.
Plus, no one wants to give it up, right?
Nobody wants to give them
No,
up.
no,
Um,
I can see
um,
that.
and then there's like a third really big fear that you talk about, which, is seems most common to me,
Yeah.
when I talk to so many women all the time. So what? And then what's that fear?
That is having enough money to care for your children.
Hmm.
Women tend to, that's the first thing that they think about, right? And thankfully, and I can understand that. I have a child myself, right?
Right.
We think about our children. We think about not only having to do a parenting plan with somebody, right? And we're going to relinquish our child. We're not going to see them as often, maybe. It's a legitimate fear, but it's also the financial impact. Like, am I
Hmm.
going to be able to afford not only myself, but supporting my children, right?
Right.
Um, and there are child support guidelines in every state.
Hmm.
Um, they all have different ones. Um, but you need to budget this too, right? Making
Right.
sure that you've included everything that you can think of, from grocery bills,
Hmm.
especially for the boys in our household that eat a lot, right? Making sure
It's
that's
like a gallon of milk a day sometimes.
right. But making sure you're doing that, right? So a financial
Right.
professional, a CDFA, can really help you because they see all this, right? And they
Right.
know, like, are you accounting for enough? Do you have enough in that? Are you getting enough then in your child support to be able to care for them?
Hmm.
Um, but the one thing I want to mention too is taking care of yourself first is so important.
Hmm.
And a lot of women, they tend to think of their children first. And
Yep.
in order to take care of your children, you need to take care of yourself. So
Um,
making sure you have, um, some self care in place, but also don't make any emotional decisions. I see a lot of women make decisions around like keeping the home because they
mhm,
don't want to disrupt their children.
mhm.
And it can really get them into a financial predicament
Yep.
because they're now going to have to afford this home without much assistance, right? And
Right.
that's where you see women getting into poverty really quickly.
It's that dollar for dollar, that we were talking about earlier, because you can't, if something goes wrong, you can't take the cash out of the house. Where if it was in a bank account,
Mm-hmm.
you might be able just to access that cash right away.
Right.
Kind of going full circle there.
Yeah, yeah, and And I want to say children are resilient. They are. They're more resilient than I think we as adults are. We worry so much about them. They're more worrying about us. They
Yeah.
do, and they can like even having the conversation with them about like staying at the, they don't want you to have to forego something, especially if they're all not going to be okay, right? All of you aren't going to
I,
be okay.
being the kid on the other side, feel that exact way.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Yeah. You want to see your parents succeed as well. Because
mhm.
if that's not happy, then you're not going to be happy.
True, true. And
And
if
my,
you're trying to just make ends meet, like that's no one wants to live that way, right?
yeah, no one wants a high stress mom or dad. So
Mm-mm.
let's
Yeah,
make their lives easier.
right, right.
But then, like you also mentioned, it's like we always love to kind of use the analogy, like on the airplane, how they say, you have to put your own air mask on before putting on, your kids or your neighbors,
Hmm.
helping them out. Because yeah, you have to fill your own cup if you're not doing well. You got to do that, which is a great point to, always bring up because it's a hard transition in life.
It is. It's really hard, like going through the divorce, but even after you're done with your divorce too, right? You're in a different chapter, and it's
Right.
like kind of like a now what thing, right? And just making sure that you're okay, so your kids can be okay too.
Hmm.
Very important.
I think this has been, a lot of great advice, just because we understand that these fears are very common among multiple women. We say everyone is unique, but of course we do all have these similar feelings at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it's nice to know that people are out there willing and ready to help you, understanding that that's, where you're coming from and been through that situation as well.
Yeah, and see it all the
Because
yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
for better or for worse, it's all the
Yeah.
time. Um, is there any last pieces of advice or anything else that we didn't touch on today that you want to make sure our audience hears?
Yeah, I would I just wanted to kind of touch on like what can you do, right? What can you
Yeah.
do even if you don't see this coming down the road, right? But
Hmm.
maybe for those who are contemplating divorce, what can you do to prepare and not have the fear? The first thing is, and I would love everybody to do this before they even like think about it, is to gather up all their documents,
Yep.
right? Have a snapshot of where your life stands right at this moment. Your bank statements, any credit cards, or even just looking at your credit report, making sure there's no unknowns there is
Hmm.
a really good thing. And sometimes when you're going through divorce, your credit rating can get impacted because your closing accounts, there might be some things that maybe don't get paid on time in the transition period. So if you can do anything right now to like increase your credit score, that might be opening a credit card in your name, making a few purchases, making sure you pay it monthly, but don't go crazy. Just something to like make your credit rating go up a little bit. That's always a good thing. You
That's a
know.
really smart idea. That's one I don't hear very often, but I understand how it could affect your credit score, and so getting it up higher, giving it that extra
Yeah,
boost, that's a good piece
yeah,
of advice.
yeah. And the last thing too is saving an emergency fund.
Hmm.
Even putting a couple dollars a week aside in case you need it down the road. I'm not because you have to disclose this, right? You have to disclose money you're going to put aside for yourself. It's still part of the marital property, but you can have money to pay for financial professionals or
Hmm.
professionals before the actual time comes, right? And then
Right.
you're trying to use joint accounts, but just having that a little money aside for yourself to help prepare you is a good decision, or and I think
Yeah.
that's true for anybody, right? Just having a little
Right.
money aside for emergencies is important.
Yep.
Yeah,
You have to, because
yeah,
life is never smooth. So you got to pay for something along the way.
right. Even just a car bill that you didn't expect,
Yep.
you have
There's
to have
always
the money.
something. I
Yeah,
promise you.
always something. Yep.
Alrighty. So we have had your email on the bottom of the screen. Is there any other way you would like professionals or women to contact you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a website, www findingstrengthwithshell.com. I know it's long, but you can reach me through there. I have, frequently asked questions out there that you can look through and some more detail. And we can set up a free consultation, even if you just want to chat.
Awesome. Awesome. Shell's also one of our Purse Strings approved professionals, so you can check her out on our site, pursestrings.co. And we will be back here next week with one more topic about financially surviving divorce. But reach out if you have any questions until then. So talk to everyone soon. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.